Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. I'm Gina Choi, Director of the SEC San Francisco Regional Office. Thank you so much for joining us for our Silicon Valley Initiative. We are thrilled and delighted that you are here tonight. Before I introduce our keynote speaker, Commissioner Kara Stein, on behalf of the San Francisco office of the SEC, I wanted to thank Stanford, the Rock Center, Joe Grunfest, Dan Siciliano, Amanda Packel, and their team for working with us on this great event. The Silicon Valley Initiative was originally an idea conceived of by staff in our office who wanted to reach out to the issuer, registrant, and capital raising community here in Silicon Valley. And after attending the Rock Center's annual Directors College last June, several members of our office were inspired by Arthur and Tony Rock's work, sponsoring conferences and seminars and raising awareness of issues surrounding trust in the investment community and at our public companies. Ordinarily, when you hear from our office, it's because we may be starting an investigation or an examination. Not always the best circumstances to exchange ideas and engage in fruitful dialogue about industry trends with your regulator. Through this event, staff in our office wanted to create a means by which leaders at the SEC and stakeholders could discuss key regulatory issues particular to the dynamic and innovative PE, VC, startup, and entrepreneur community here in Silicon Valley. We believe that events like this further our mission of protecting investors and facilitating capital formation. I applaud you for coming and taking time out of your busy schedules to join us as we discuss these important regulatory issues. I wanted to recognize our SVI team, Kristen Snyder, Judy Anderson, Rebecca Lubens, Jeremy Pendry, Bill Salzman, and Carlos Vasquez, who put great effort and thought into organizing this event. And we wanted to thank our panelists from DC, Drew Bowden, the director of the SEC's National Exam Program, Keith Higgins, the director of Corp Fin. They both have been extremely supportive of our efforts. And after a full day of rulemaking for Keith and an out-of-town trip to the Midwest for Drew, they both headed to Dulles this morning in the wee hours. After multiple rounds of de-icing and 8 hours on the runway, Drew was able to make it, and Keith's flight was ultimately canceled a few hours ago, but he will be joining us by phone. We are so grateful for your efforts, and a special thanks to Kristen Snyder, Aaron Schneider, and Carlos Vasquez from our office who heroically took on the last-minute role of understudy. Thank you so much. So on to our keynote. Please join me in welcoming Commissioner Kara Stein. I believe this is her first visit to the Bay Area since becoming commissioner about a year and a half ago. Commissioner Stein was appointed to the SEC by President Obama, and she was sworn in August 2013. Commissioner Stein previously served as legal counsel and senior policy advisor to Senator Jack Reed. Most recently, and during the passage of Dodd-Frank, she was staff director of the Senate Banking Subcommittee on Securities. She served many years as counsel and advisor on Capitol Hill, where she organized and participated in hearings on issues including the evolution of market microstructure, the state of the securitization markets, capital raising, and public offerings, for the role of the accounting profession in preventing another financial crisis. She received her BA from Yale College and JD from Yale Law School. For those of us who have worked with Commissioner Stein, we know how much she cares about the mission of the agency and how strongly she feels about empowering the staff with the tools it needs to protect investors. With that, it is my distinct pleasure and honor to welcome Commissioner Stein.
So let me know if you can hear me. It's an absolute pleasure to be with you today. I want to thank Gina for the kind introduction. I want to also acknowledge former SEC Commissioner Grunfest and now professor. I'm pleased to be here on your home turf. Before I begin my remarks, you've probably already heard this today, I'm required to tell you that the views I'm expressing are my own and do not necessarily express those of the Commission, my fellow commissioners, or the staff of the Commission. I'm very pleased to be with you today and in the Bay Area. I actually arrived on Tuesday, which allowed me to avoid the snowstorm in Washington, D.C., and I've been meeting with many interesting and wonderful people. I want to thank the staff and everyone at the Rock Center who put the conference together. It's been a terrific collaboration, and it's providing all of us with an opportunity to meet and discuss emerging issues affecting capital formation and private funds. So thank you to both for coordinating the conference. I also want to thank the San Francisco office staff for giving me an office away from the office this week. I really appreciate it. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what I've done since I've been here. On Tuesday, I met with the Financial Women of San Francisco. This organization is focused on women investing in, mentoring, and helping other women. I know that you just spent some time during the previous panel discussing private equity and venture capital regulation. Something to add to the list of important issues facing this industry is the lack of women in private equity and venture capital firms, especially at the senior level. A recent survey found that only 4% of senior venture capitalists are women. This issue has received a lot of attention recently, and I understand that industry groups are focused on it, and I think that people have become aware of both the numbers and of the issue, and are thinking about not only how firms can open up the door, but also create a welcoming environment. So I look forward to hearing about your ideas and positive developments going forward. So as I mentioned, I've been here since Tuesday, and I've been sort of on a nonstop whirlwind tour. On Wednesday, I visited the Runway, a very impressive startup incubator located in downtown San Francisco. Just around the corner from the Runway, I participated in a roundtable on crowdfunding and startup access to capital hosted by the new Startup Legal Garage at UC Hastings College of Law. This innovative clinical program helps train young lawyers to provide legal advice that can help startups get off on the right foot. In visiting all of these places, it struck me how committed this region of the country is to innovation, new ideas, new products, and disrupting old models. So today's conference is an excellent opportunity to talk about both innovation and regulation. How does the Securities and Exchange Commission support innovation? Innovation isn't explicitly part of our mission, but I think the Commission does in fact support innovation through facilitating capital formation. A major driver of innovation in this country has been the existence of a dependable foundation of capital formation rules that, while not perfect, and I'm sure you're discussing that over the next day or so, have allowed companies that need funding to obtain capital to grow and prosper. A key question the Commission is always grappling with is how do we continue to facilitate innovation as business models are disrupted, financial markets change, and technology evolves. How do we ensure that our rules keep pace with innovation? It's very challenging when you're in the government. So part of that conversation that I'd like to have with you today is about that. I want to talk about a few areas at the Commission where I actually see the possibility of new options for capital formation. Just as companies continue to innovate, we at the Commission need to grow, keep pace, and stay out on the edge of such change. We also need to be forward-looking and creative so that we can best carry out our mission. In order to facilitate capital formation, our rules must reflect and accommodate the quickly evolving marketplace. As you all know, the Bay Area has historically been the capital for venture capital, and it remains so today. As of January 2nd, 2015, there were over 1,700 venture capital funds within our San Francisco office's regulatory framework or footprint. We know this from data collected on Form ADV, which is the form investment advisors use to report information to the Commission. That is almost 3 times as many venture capital funds as our next closest regional office. Clearly, venture capital is continuing to thrive in this area of the country. Venture financing has typically been through private investments in smaller issuers. There have been and continue to be amazing innovations hatched right here in the Bay Area. Many of these success stories are attributable in part to backing from various venture capital and PE firms. Twitter, Tesla, Google, the stories are legendary, and all have received funding from private funds from this area. The list of great companies that were initially funded through venture capital is a very long one. As a commission, we of course want to facilitate investment in these types of innovative companies and make venture funds' deployment of capital work as smoothly as possible. At the end of the day, we, like you, care about facilitating capital formation, creating more and better jobs, and nurturing new companies. And there's no better place in the world to form a startup and follow your dream than in the United States, and we need to keep it that way. But the Commission is also focused on some new capital raising methods. Venture capital might not be an option for every company for a variety of reasons. So we need to make sure our securities laws are flexible enough for a wide variety of companies and funding needs. Our securities laws in this area should aspire to provide a variety of funding options that accommodate companies at different stages in their development. I want to discuss some of these options in addition to venture that may be available to smaller and newer companies, and I want to particularly highlight some of the new options that the Commission is considering. Despite the fact that venture financing contributes a substantial amount of capital to smaller businesses, is there more that can be done? As I mentioned, venture funding may not be available for every company. There are a limited number of VC firms. Perhaps your startup focuses on an industry or a sector that's not attracted to venture at the moment, for whatever reason. Maybe your company is in a stage of development that's not appealing to venture. Or it could simply be that you don't like the strings that come attached with venture financing, such as surrendering some management control. The good news is that the Commission is currently considering several new options that will promote and enhance capital formation and help United States companies remain at the forefront of innovation. Some of you in this room helped get some of this passed in the Congress. I'm going to talk about Regulation A+. It could be a potentially very interesting new fundraising option for both small and medium-sized businesses. This provision was part of the Jobs Act passed by Congress in 2012 and would expand upon the Commission's current but little used Regulation A exemption. Reg A Plus would enable companies to offer up to $50 million in a 12-month period without registering their securities with the Commission, as opposed to the current $5 million limit. It would also allow small businesses to raise money from the public with a streamlined approach to oversight by the Commission. Reg A Plus is a creative example of reimagining a capital formation option that was essentially broken. We're still in the process of finalizing the new Reg A Plus, so I can't speak that much about it. Although it's not clear how effective Reg A Plus will be once the final rules are adopted, I'm pleased to see us retrofitting an archaic rule to adapt to a changing marketplace. Changes in technology, in the demands of investors, in our financial markets, and in the needs of small and large companies are clearly disrupting our regulatory paradigm We're quite appropriately assessing what is working with our rules and what is not. But we need to be continually examining our securities laws to look for opportunities to do the same thing that we are doing right now with Reg A+. As a commission, we need to be as dynamic and as nimble as are the companies seeking to obtain capital and the investors who want to invest their capital. Another new form of capital raising that could plug a gap in the capital formation process is financing through crowdfunding. I suspect most of you are familiar with the concept of crowdfunding, but in essence, crowdfunding allows small companies to harness the power of a community of small investors via the internet to fund themselves quickly and efficiently. Crowdfunding offers the possibility of small businesses raising equity more directly and potentially more efficiently than our current options allow, including providing an alternative to bank lending. In that sense, it is certainly, has the capability of disrupting the current capital formation model. As we all search for ways to allocate capital as effectively and as efficiently as possible, crowdfunding may play an important role. At the same time, equity crowdfunding is a challenging concept for many reasons. It's a new regime. It does not fit neatly into our 80-year-old securities law framework, which is largely focused on operating companies with some history. And with crowdfunding, we are in many ways writing completely new rules and creating new markets out of whole cloth. The excitement over this new form of raising capital also needs to be balanced by consideration of potential risks, both to issuers and investors. It is only going to work if investors have confidence in this new internet marketplace. And the risk of losses to investors, including complete and total loss, is potentially elevated by the nature of the underlying companies. Some argue that the investors most likely to fund these newer and smaller companies may be the least equipped and the least suitable, right, for these types of investments. They're generally going to be non-accredited investors who may be dabbling in an area that's caught their eye, or perhaps a friend has recommended an idea to them. These are unlikely to be seasoned angel investors. In addition, equity crowdfunding may be reduced to a temporary fad if fraud or questions of credibility become part of the mix, or if an investor's rights are not preserved through subsequent tranches of financing. For the crowdfunding market to be successful over the long run, it needs to be a place that is fair, that's effective, and where both investors and companies understand the risks. In this area, our securities laws matter more than ever. Investor protection and capital formation must go hand in hand. As the Commission thinks through innovative and new ideas about capital formation, we also need to think about new and innovative ways to fulfill our investor protection mission. Crowdfunding actually offers a perfect opportunity to do that, and we should be creative. One idea that I'd like to get your thoughts on is whether we can make crowdfunding work better by pooling each class of crowdfunding investors into a fund vehicle. If done right, this could potentially solve the problem of hundreds or thousands of small investors on a company's register, while also ensuring that crowdfunding investors could effectively exercise their governance rights. I know other jurisdictions are experimenting with this idea, but I'd love to hear your thoughts about what benefits and risks such pooling might present here in the United States. Adopting a final crowdfunding rule will be a challenge, but I'm eager to work on it. And I hope that the panel following my talk will be able to get into this issue a little bit. I would welcome your feedback and your thoughts on how to help crowdfunding work as I continue to grapple with it myself. That means call me or write me. I am available. And part of coming out here, too, is to say, even though I'm 3,000 miles away, I would love it if you all would communicate with us. You really are the intelligentsia on a lot of innovative and new, capital raising. And if you don't help us, who will? So I've also been saying to people, we're a democracy, and the government is only as good as the people who participate in it. So help us, as we go forward and we struggle with these issues. Help us know how other countries are doing it, how you yourself are doing it on a platform that you've created. Help us. The final capital formation option that I want to discuss is the idea of regional exchanges. Some view regional exchanges as a possible way to help increase secondary market liquidity for smaller companies. In 2011, the state legislature of Hawaii authorized a working group to examine whether a locally focused Hawaii-based stock exchange would be beneficial to support investments in local companies. Other states have undertaken similar examinations. Local or regional exchanges could be a beneficial method for connecting local enterprises to local investors and providing more secondary market liquidity. An exchange focused on venture or smaller issuers might also hold promise. My fellow Commissioner Dan Gallagher has discussed the possibility of venture, exchanges as well. There are a number of questions that need to be addressed, and I support the Commission staff issuing a concept release to get everyone's best thoughts in this area. These exchanges could allow small companies to exclusively trade their shares. Disclosure and other rules might be somewhat relaxed. Perhaps such an exchange could provide a new runway for growth for smaller companies, while also providing the essential material disclosures that investors need. We need to understand also why such exchanges have not worked in the recent past and what, if anything, could be done differently. So again, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. I want to leave you with a few final thoughts on capital formation. I mentioned some new options that the Commission's considering: Reg A+, crowdfunding, regional exchanges. I also mentioned the tried and true pathway of venture capital. And there are other potential options that I'll have to save for another time. Some of these options for growth will succeed, and some may be lightly used. That's okay. That's to be expected. I always think, but what have we learned? And how do we go from there? That might come from being in the legislature for a long time. It's that the law doesn't work, let's change it. Figure out a better way to do it. But I think we need to keep thinking through this, and we need to keep evolving. The important point is that we all need to be engaged in thinking how to best fund companies given the dramatically evolving financial marketplace. So it's not just happening in the company and the issuer space. In the end, I hope that we will have added a few more options to the palette, and we're going to keep thinking through how to do it better. I tend to think of each capital formation option as presenting a different method of growing with different strings attached. They're always strings. Anytime a company is seeking financing, they're going to have some expectations that come along with the money, right? Whether it's bank lending, venture capital, etc. I already talked about venture sometimes wanting to have a lot of involvement in management. Others may not want the strings attached that come with being a public company, such as quarterly reporting. The capital formation process and the securities laws should be flexible enough so that businesses have a variety of options that can hopefully suit their unique needs, while at the same time protecting investors. Many of you in the audience are at the forefront of innovation. And given your backgrounds and your experience, you have a deep appreciation and understanding of what it takes to adapt to a changing landscape. And it's in many ways what makes you successful. I hope that you can help the Commission follow your lead and channel some of that innovative and disruptive spirit. Our regulatory system is 80 years old. I think there's a recognition that we need to evolve in the areas of both capital formation and investor protection to adapt to today's rapidly changing marketplace. At the same time, many of our securities laws have held up remarkably well. The basics are strong and clear, simple. Clear disclosure to investors, good corporate governance, eliminating conflicts of interest, straightforward approaches to fees and cost, transparent public trading markets, being a good fiduciary when managing other people's money, and so on. Time and time again, these basics have led to some of the strongest, most productive companies in the entire world. And I think it's no accident that the American approach to capital markets, including SEC oversight, has been emulated by many. I know that regulation can feel uncomfortable, especially for those who might do the right thing on their own. And we at the Commission should always be innovating to make it work better. But the basics are needed, and they have benefited many market participants. Time after time, we have learned that markets do not effectively regulate themselves, and when basic rules aren't followed, the results are detrimental to everyone. I wear a lot of hats as an SEC commissioner, and there are countless areas to focus on. But please know that fair and effective capital formation is something that I care deeply about. There's nothing more important for our country and our economy than making sure that businesses obtain the capital they need to grow and to create jobs within a marketplace that is safe for investors. So I urge all of you, whether you're a business owner, an academic, an entrepreneur, a student, an attorney, a fund, or just someone interested in capital formation, so capital formation geek, to help us as we continue to explore and discover new options for accessing capital. Only with your input and help can we make sure our options are dynamic and responsive to the marketplace. I look forward to continuing to work with all of you on these very challenging but exciting projects. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.